What's up guys, welcome back. I built this little display base a while ago. I was going to use it for a Hellboy model that I've been working on, but I haven't gotten around to finishing them yet. It was quite a fun little project and this video is going to show how I went about building it. So we're going to do essentially a small scale concrete pour. So you're going to need some kind of shallow container to pour it into. This here is actually the packaging for a miniature, but you can use anything like an old CD case or the lid of a box of cotton buds would work really well. I'll put a couple of cocktail sticks on either side here and a little bit of blue tack just to stop them sliding about. Much like in real concrete, we're going to have some wire running through the middle of ours, so this is going to let us have that wire elevated off the bottom of the container so that when we do the pour, the wires will be roughly central. I'll put two more sticks on the other side in the same way. Alright, so now we have a nice frame to balance our wires on. Speaking of which, I got this roll of cheap copper wire that I bought on Amazon, and I'll cut a piece of wire so that it's long enough to balance on our little sticks. Then I'll use that as a template and just cut a bunch of wires so that they're all roughly the same length. If you need to straighten them after cutting, you can clamp down one end with a pair of pliers and then simply pull the other end with your hand, and that should even out any kinks or annoying bends in the wires. The stuff I used here was actually a little too thin in hindsight. You'd probably be better using those brass rods you can buy for pinning miniatures together. They come already straightened and I think they'd work really well. Whatever wire you decide to use, once you've cut a bunch of them to size, just place them horizontally on your little frame, spacing them out so they are roughly equidistant. And then do the same thing, this time placing them vertically. Alrighty, so once you've done that, place them aside and you can start to make your concrete mix. For that we're going to use plaster of Paris, and you're going to need a little measuring cup and something that you can mix your plaster in that you don't mind throwing away later. To make the plaster, you'll need to mix 1 part water with 1.5 parts plaster. So I just measured out some water and poured it into an old jam jar. Then I measured out 1.5 times that amount of plaster. I want to add this to the water gradually while I'm stirring, so I dump the powder out onto a folded piece of paper. Then I can just hold the paper like this and let some of the powder slide into the jar. If you try and pour it in from the measuring cup, it just goes all over the place, so it works out a lot better doing it this way. Use a stick to stir it up. I'm using the handle of an old brush. Then you're just going to keep dumping more powder in and then mix it with the water. Try to resist the urge just to dump it all in at once. If you do that, it's not going to mix properly and you'll get lumps and it won't cure correctly when you go to dry it. So it'll just turn into a big waste of time. Once you get it all mixed together, pour the plaster out onto your little wire lattice that you made earlier. Be careful that you don't pour so much that it flows up and over the sides of your container. Then you can use your stick from earlier to just smooth out the surface a bit. Leave it somewhere safe and it should take about 4 hours to dry completely. Whatever you do, don't pour the leftover plaster down the sink, just throw the jar away. When it dries, you'll find that it comes out of the container really easily. It should just pop straight out. Then you can get rid of your cocktail sticks and the blue tack. You don't really need any of that stuff anymore. Probably find that the top is a bit lumpy, but you can smooth that out really easily with some heavy grit sandpaper. It gets quite messy doing this. You might want to wear a mask so that you don't breathe in any of that dust. This also leaves you with a nice rough texture to the surface. It really helps sell that realistic concrete effect. For our plinth, we're going to use an old dice box. You can actually buy these without the dice really quite cheaply. I've put a link into the description for where you can get them. We're going to essentially glue the plaster onto the top of the box, but before we do that, we're going to bash it with a hammer. I'm using a piece of wood over the top just so that I don't leave any big dents on the surface. Then you can just pick it up with your hands and break it up. The plaster is pretty brittle, so it's easy enough to snap it with your bare hands. Just keep breaking the plaster up so that you get lots of interesting shapes forming. It's going to vaguely stay together because of the wire grid that we put in the middle of it, but you will get a few bits falling out here and there, and that's totally okay. In fact, that's actually what we're going for. So once you've decided it's nicely broken up, place it on top of your dice box and start to try and find a position that you like the look of. We have quite a lot of plaster to play with, so we can mess about with this quite a fair bit. So don't worry if you don't like the look of it straight away. Just pretend like you're Mr. Miyagi clipping at a bonsai tree and you can't go far wrong.
Think only tree. Make a perfect picture down to last pine needle. Wipe your mind clean, everything but tree.
I think it'll look alright around here. But I don't really want all this stuff at the sides, so I'll just push it down there against the side of the box. Actually, maybe I'll pull that bit out a little and just snip the metal wires. I won't cut it all the way off though, I'll just leave it hanging down like that. And maybe that side can fold down there. Yep, that looks alright. I think it's a bit too uniform still, so I'll snap some of these edges off with a pair of pliers. I don't want too much stuff hanging off the sides, so I'm going to cut that bit off just there. And I think there's maybe too much stuff on this side as well, so I'll get rid of that. Next, we are going to use our pliers again to crack the plaster up a bit more. It's a little too samey, and the pliers should help to give us a more random appearance. Alright, so we're just going to keep chipping away at it until we find something that works. Keep all the little bits that break off. You can use them on the base later, or just keep them for future projects where you need some bits of broken concrete. Before we start to glue it onto the base, we're going to prep the box a little. So I'm going to glue this black part onto the bottom with a little super glue. The nozzle on my glue is actually all solid, so what I do is just take it off and use a paper clip as an applicator. I find that works quite well. So you just stick the paper clip into the glue and then spread it where you want it. There's going to be a little seam where those two parts meet, but we can get rid of that with a little bit of milliput by pushing it into the join. You can either use your fingers, or if you have one, use a rubber sculpting tool. Leave the milliput to cure and it should set rock hard in a few hours. The good thing about milliput is that unlike green stuff, you can sand it, so we're going to flatten the milliput out now with some sandpaper. Use quite a heavy grit to start with and then switch to a finer grit so that you get a nice smooth finish. Then just give it a wipe to get all the dust off the surface. You definitely don't want any of that on there when you come to paint it. Alright, so to attach our masterpiece, first we're going to score up the top with a scalpel blade. This is going to give your super glue something more to grip onto. And I'll actually pour a pretty decent amount of the super glue straight onto the middle there, then spread it out with a paper clip. We're going to use quite a lot of the glue so that it stays wet for a while. That will give you some leeway for adjusting the position of things when you put your plaster framework thing on top. Then you can take some of your spare plaster and just glue them here and there over the top. For the ground scatter, I'm using a mix of various grades of sand, some little bits of cork and some of the smaller plaster bits, and I'm just going to sprinkle that onto the exposed surface. Shake off the excess and survey the damage. So yeah, I think it looks okay. You might want to double check that your model is going to fit there on this stage. Yeah, I think that should be good. I'll glue this overhanging section to the side of the plinth with some super glue, just so that it's not flapping about all over the place. Some of these wires are way too long, so we'll just give them a bit of a trim. So yeah, I think it's looking pretty interesting now. There's a few bare spots on the surface still, so we'll sort that out by blobbing on some of the super glue and then sprinkling some more of our sand mix on top. Also, I think the surface is a bit too one-dimensional. It's quite flat. So we'll put a couple of our broken bits on top, maybe here off to the corner. Yeah, that's okay. Another one over here maybe. There. I think that'll do, I think. Once you're happy with the placement, you can use your super glue again to stick them down. Alright, so that was a bit of an experiment for me, but I think it turned out quite well. You don't have to use a dice box as a plinth. You could use a block of wood or even just a regular slaughter base if you wanted to do it, say on a smaller scale. I'm going to show how I painted it in an upcoming video. Hopefully this gives you a few ideas that you can use in building your own bases. It's an area that I think I need to spend more time working on, to be honest. This was my first attempt at doing something slightly outside the box. I'm happy with the result, but I know that I have it in me to do better next time. Anyway, thanks for taking the time to watch the video, and thank you very much as always for supporting the channel. It's quite a big deal for me to have so many people engaged in what I'm doing, and it's also a big motivator in driving me to get better. Alright, so I think that's all for now. Stay tuned for more videos coming soon. Thanks again. Bye for now.